Здравствуйте, уважаемые дамы и господа. Мы начинаем. Сегодня мы представляем вам школу интернет-предпринимательства. Мы — это компания EDventure, ведущая компания на интернет-рынке в области создания, продвижения новых интернет-компаний в партнерстве с компанией РИФ+КИБ'2012. Почему школа, почему мы? Сегодня интернет представляет из себя площадку для воплощения новых идей. Это один из самых перспективных и быстро растущих рынков. Это метод для предпринимательства, представляющий огромные возможности. Почему мы? Компания EDventure существует 2 года, и за 2 года мы запустили 18 работающих, динамично развивающихся новых инновационных онлайн-компаний, собираемся запустить еще больше. И знаем про этот бизнес практически все. Я имею в виду бизнес и процесс интернет-строительства. Сегодня мы готовы поделиться с теми, кто начинает свой бизнес или уже начал, хочет получить больше знаний и избежать ошибок. Мы расскажем, мы поделимся с вами нашими знаниями. Мы привлекли много внешних экспертов, которые понимают и в разных областях интернет-строительства. Надеемся сделать нашу программу максимально познавательной и очень прагматичной. Мы не будем вам рассказывать теорию, мы будем рассказывать только практику. Как во всякой уважающей себя школе у нас есть уроки, у нас есть учителя, у нас есть классные руководители, у нас даже есть дневники. То есть они все лежат на входе, если кто-то не успел взять, можете взять. Здесь представлена подробная программа, которую почему-то не воплотили организаторы на всех распечатанных программах. Здесь это прошивка исправлена, здесь все очень подробно написано. И в отличие от обычной школы, сегодня не у учителей, а у учеников есть возможность доставлять оценки. Здесь есть специальная графа, вы можете оценивать в интеллектуальной системе всех сегодняшних преподавателей. Работаем мы по графику, традиционному, опять же, для школы. Каждый урок 45 минут. Сначала будет рассказано основные правила по определенному предмету. После этого вы сможете задавать все интересующиеся вас вопросы. 45 минут, потом следующий преподаватель и перерыв, в том числе на обед. Не буду больше рассказывать подробности про саму программу, она написана, все вы можете увидеть. Хочу всех порадовать наш приглашенный гость Эстер Дайсон, основатель фонда EDventure, один из самых известных на международном рынке предпринимателей, один из самых опытных интернет-предпринимателей и инвестор, который знает о интернет-стартапах практически все, сегодня приехала к нам, чтобы открыть нашу школу.
Спасибо. Да. Доброе утро. Меня зовут Esther. Я буду говорить по-английски, потому что будет лучше меня слушать по-английски, чем по-русски. Надеюсь, что вы понимаете, и я стараюсь говорить медленно.
Если все сидят начинающие предприниматели, которые хотят привлечь инвестиции, запуска инвестора,
кто здесь делает стартап? Все? А другие, что вы делаете?
Думаю о том, чтобы начать.
Есть здесь инвесторы? Инвестор? Пока нет. Окей. У меня мало времени, и я хочу делать только одну вещь. I want to give you one idea about how to think about making a startup. So, in English, it's the story of the stone soup. And currently in Russia, it's the story of kashu is topora. Now, the story of the stone soup is a story about a con man, a trickster, a guy who's a bad guy, basically. He comes into a town with nothing, with just a magic stone. And he says, this stone is magic. It will make the best soup in the world. All I need is a little help. And he asks one villager for some meat, another villager for some vegetables. He asks for some salt, of course a fire, some boiling water. And he makes an amazing soup, a magic soup. But of course, his stone was just a plain stone. It was nothing. And the original story is this guy is a fraud. He's claiming his stone is magic, but it's not. The reality, though, is this man is an entrepreneur. And your idea is the stone. Your idea is worth nothing unless you build a business around it. Your idea is just a silly little stone. It may be a beautiful stone. It may have a special way it shines in the dark. It may be a nice shape, but it's really just a stone. It has no value. The job of the entrepreneur is not to collect the villagers, but to collect the komandu mechty, the dream team that will turn this soup into a real product. So instead of vegetables and meat, you need a user interface, you need the back end to your website, you need marketing. All these things come together and they make a soup out of this little idea that you can find lying on the ground. The ideas are everywhere here, but building a real product is like creating this stone soup. It needs other people to succeed. There's a lot of discussion now about entrepreneurs. They're the heroes. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. But every good entrepreneur needs to find first a partner, 3 people, 10 people. Then if he or she is lucky, 100 people, 1,000 people. But as the entrepreneur, your job isn't done when you've created the soup, when you've created the product. Because as an entrepreneur, your job is actually to build the restaurant, to build the system that will create soup 2.0, that will create soup 2.1, soup 3.0, and then maybe even zapuski and dessert 3 and so forth. So you need to build a system where there's a kitchen, they're serving people, where everything works. And then finally, once you build one restaurant, it's to create a restaurant chain. So you, just like Novikov, you have, what is it, Pustin? Yeah, you have different restaurants. Then you're a real entrepreneur because you've built something that can live without you. The successful entrepreneur doesn't stay in control. The successful entrepreneur builds something that runs by itself. And then if you're a very successful entrepreneur, you can sell your stake, you can go public, you can, I don't know, sell to Yandex, sell to Mail.ru, and then you can go become an angel investor. And you can find other startups, you can fund them, or maybe you can do another startup. Instead of gribnoi soup, you can do soup iz pomodorov. But the point to understand is the idea is just right at the bottom. That's really my message today for opening the school. You're going to hear a lot about the meat, the vegetables, the spice, how to write the menus so that the customers want to buy your soup. What I'd like to do, Lada has a question. If you have a few questions, I think I took even less than 10 minutes, so I'd be happy.
Esther, what is the main ingredient for this startup soup? Or maybe all of them have the same meaning to be successful?
So just like soups, startups come in many flavors. And they need, the important thing though is your soup needs to have a focus. It needs to be pomidori or gribnaya or lapsha smyasa or whatever. It needs to know what is it, how is it different from the other soups. That's really important, to have an identity for your business, to be distinct, to take your little idea and to build something around it that people understand. It's not just the technology, it's the what is in people's heads when they think about your company. When you try to communicate, you need to think not about what am I saying, but what are they hearing? What do they see when they see my company? I know how wonderful it is. I know what all these things do, but from the user's point of view, do they know what's in the soup? What's the value?
Спасибо большое, Александр Иванович. Может быть, есть вопросы у кого-то из присутствующих в зале? Эстер.
Даже по-русски.
Можно по-русски, можно по-английски. Эстер, может быть, тогда я спрошу. Пожалуйста. Возьмите, пожалуйста, микрофон.
Esther, hello, my name is Maria, and I know that you are going to visit the 12th Congress, which is held in Russia for the first time next Monday and Tuesday. Yeah? So can you tell something about this? How are you going, and what are you going to present there, and what are you going to tell our Russian
Investors?
investors, yeah, business angels?
Well, I hope not too many of you go there because I'll probably tell them almost the same story I just told you. It's because, you know, I can't, in a speech, you can't really tell people very much. You can just give them a way to see something. And investors, I think, also spend too much time on the quality of the idea, which is important, as you're going to hear from Leonid. But it's the ability to take this idea and turn it into a commercial venture that really matters. So I'm going to be telling the investors how important it is to understand the team, to, you know, it's not fair, but somebody who's succeeded once is a much better investment than someone who's never tried. Somebody who's failed once and learned from it is also a much better investment than somebody new because you can't tell. The job of the investor is not just to pick a company. That's like picking a stone. The job of the investor is to help the startupper to turn the company, to turn the stone into a real company. So good investors give not just money, they give advice, they know, I hate to say this, they know someone who works at Yandex who would be perfect as your sales director. They know someone who works at Kontakte who would be perfect to be your viral marketing manager. They know someone from Google who should be doing your search optimization, and so the investor will help you assemble the team. Maybe they'll introduce you to other investors. They will introduce you to customers. So that's what I'll talk about.
Thank you very much. Two short final questions for you. From your point of view, what's the main difference between Russian and foreign entrepreneurs? I don't mean only mentality, but education, skills, maybe mistakes.
Okay. The difference between Russian entrepreneurs and Western ones, mostly it's the culture they find themselves in. They usually have the same character, which is a certain amount of courage. They're willing to try, they're willing to take the risk of failure. They have an idea that they want to turn into something. That's the same. The difference is, one, if you're an American entrepreneur, probably somebody you went to university with is already working at Google and you can hire him. Somebody else, your father's partner who works in a large company, you can sell your products. You know people who are in business. In Russia, most people's parents were not in business. They were engineers or they worked for the state somehow. And so both the level of experience and the availability of people to hire to make your dream team, it's much harder because there's much less experience. In California, you walk on the street and you put up a sign that says Chief Financial Officer, and 10 people are there that you could hire tomorrow if you had enough money to pay them. Not the same here. The other difference is Russians are more risk averse. They're more scared of failure. It's considered to be shameful to fail. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to admit mistakes. It's really horrible to admit a mistake. But then once you've admitted it, it's much easier because you no longer have to pretend, you no longer, and people respect you for the courage to admit the mistake. But that's not yet in the culture here. It should be, because there's a wonderful American joke. It's a board meeting. The CEO is talking to the board members, who are all very important men in ties, and he says, my marketing manager just made a huge mistake. He spent $3 million on a marketing program that didn't work. And the board says, well, of course you'll fire the marketing manager. And the CEO says, no, I spent $3 million on his education. Now he's smart, I'm keeping him. One final difference is in Russia, for most people, their startup is like their first baby. And so they're afraid to give up control. They're afraid to hire people who are better than they are. They don't want to let go. They don't think they'll ever have such a beautiful baby again. So the ability to grow and to trust other people to run your company isn't here yet. It's much more competitive. I wouldn't say this is always true, but often American companies are willing to work together, at least on certain things, even with their competitors. And it's because they're not afraid of losing everything. Having the courage to lose everything because you know you can build it again. That's another thing you learn from failure. You learn it's possible to start over. Once you've failed, if you're in a job, once you've been fired, if you're an entrepreneur, once you've closed a company, you realize you're still alive and you can start again. And that understanding is really important.
Thank you very much. Final, very, very short question and short answer. Yes, absolutely. Who is the most successful, if you don't talk about Yandex or Mail, who is the most successful internet entrepreneur in Russia, from your point of view?
I know too many. I don't want to insult any single one of them. So, very short answer. I'm not answering.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.